Hello, everyone. How are you today? I hope you're having a great day. And we're approaching near the end of this course, which is very exciting, I'm sure. We're actually going into the last third of the course now. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you so we can work together on what we will be doing next. So the very next item that you should hand in your review sheet for exam 2. And that is due today, the 8th. Some of you have already returned it in, and thank you for that and have done a fabulous job. So anytime after you've submitted that review sheet, you may proceed and take that exam too. It is open, so you can take it at any time. All right, so next, let's go into Module 11. So here we are now, Module 11. We'll take a look at our objectives and the overview. And here now we can see that our course objective for Module 11 is to explain the importance of customer segmentation to create a value proposition. So that's what we're going to be working on now. And then we can see our module level objectives and the activities that we'll be enjoying in this module, and then the assignments. I'll go over those within the module. So let's go ahead and move over there. Okay, so here in Module 11, you are to read the chapters 31 through 36 in the All-in Startup textbook. And then we go into ethnographic research and then customer discovery, and you'll see how they're aligned and connected. All right, so let's take a look at the resources that we have. And I see there's a typo here I have to fix. All right, so now we have a brief video here that explains ethnographic research, which is helpful. And here is a interesting, and they're both brief videos. This video here is also excellent, and it has some research data on why startups succeed. So I think you'll see how this ties into the ethnographic research. All right, so now let's go back to the module. And that's right, at this point right now, we're going to go over the slide deck for ethnographic research. And from here, we'll go ahead and start from the beginning here. So ethnographic research really is the, I'm just going to touch on the highlights. I won't read the slide to you. It's understanding how people live. You may be, observing them. You may be interviewing them. You may be gathering data somehow. And it stems from ethnopodic research, right? So anthropology had done many different types of research. We can see how it stems from anthropology. So what we do is visit customers, maybe in their home or their office. We observe them, we see how they are interacting with whatever it is that we're interested in. And then we see their behavior in their terms, not our terms. Okay, so we have to be careful that we're looking at from the potential customer's perspective. And this is our potential customer that we're really looking at getting data from. So let's go ahead and take a look at it and see how we can move forward, right? So anthropodic research, and it really is very similar to entrepreneur research. So we have the ethnographic research compared to customer discovery. So we're always looking to find out from customers how our research will appeal to them somehow. And we're going to go over that in detail. So entrepreneurs can use many research methods that are developed in sociology, psychology, business, and so forth, and to really start that learning process. So what we're looking for you to do, and this ties in with the assignment for this module here, is you're going to be answering these questions. My customers are who? We're going to take a good close look at who are they. We're going to be very descriptive and come up with a persona that explains who they are. And their problem is what? What is their problem? What are the problem that they're encountering that perhaps you may be able to assist them with? They are currently solving the problem by doing what? What are the means of solving that problem? And they have tried other solutions. What are the solutions they have tried in the past? So these are probing questions we will ask potential customers to gather that information. So here, we're also going to ask them on a scale from 1 to 10, how serious is the problem? Certainly, if it's only a 1, it may be difficult to sell them on a specific solution to a problem. That might be better than what they're already experiencing. But if they have a high seriousness level to the problem, oftentimes they'd be very interested in finding a solution. So here, I'll give you an example. So my husband works with power tools, and he does construction work, and he was renovating a bathroom and putting in this beautiful, beautiful, very hard and dense porcelain tile in a bathroom. It was so hard and dense, and he had to drill through the porcelain at certain areas to install some towel bars and toilet paper holders and things like that. And also to install some other things. But so what happened was he was trying to drill through, and he tried many different types of drill bits, including diamond head drill bits, and he was not able to get through the tile, this very dense porcelain tile. At one point, he actually slipped off the tile and the drill bit went through his finger, totally through one side of his thumbnail, came out the other side of the thumb. Yuck. So do you think that was a high seriousness scale problem for him? Indeed it was. He was looking for a solution. He needed a drill bit that he could get through that tile, and he was willing to pay much more for it because it was very high on his seriousness level. Okay, so now, and then the next question is, well, what would they spend for a fix to that problem? And for him, he'd be willing to spend quite a bit of money for the perfect drill bit so that he can get through that tile quickly, smoothly, without injuring himself, but also so it doesn't cause any damage to the tile. So he was willing to spend a good deal of money for one single drill bit. All right, so that's what we need to find out. It's situations like that. So perhaps you're making that drill bit that is the answer to the problem. And so my husband would have been your potential customer that you would want to interview for that scenario. Okay, so now we look at our startup loop. This is a startup loop of despair. And we're looking at this is because this is what we've traditionally done over time. We've come up with an idea, we build whatever it is, and then we brand it, and then we go and find customers. And that has not worked very well. And we've had many failures of businesses that have gone this way. Instead, now we take a different approach, right? So what we're doing instead is I'm going to move on to, we look at generating the idea, but now we find our customer before we build and brand our product or service. So we're looking to, so that's part of the whole customer discovery. We want to see that we have customers that are willing to pay for our product or service before we consider building it and branding it. And this way we've invested very few dollars, if any, but we've spent time, of course, our time and effort in finding customers that would want our product. And sometimes it doesn't always work out. Sometimes we need to pivot, right? So now here, Steve Blank has a quote here: "A startup is a temporary organization formed to search for a repeatable and scalable business model." And so that's really what we're doing when we're interviewing and we're looking at customer discovery. We're looking at how do we find a repeatable and scalable business model that we can work with. This ties in very much to the All-In Startup book that we're reviewing right now. And you can see how all this ties together. So be sure to include information from the All-In Startup textbook within the exam 3 review sheet, as well as this slide deck in my lecture. Okay, so now starting the research. So how do we go about, conducting our ethnographic research, right? So we look at ethno and graphy, ethno being culture, graphy being a written document. And so what we would do is we want to look at research methods and where investigators are immersing in the subject's everyday lives. So we're looking at, what do they do? Can we observe these people to see how they perform, interact with something, and or interview them to get information from them? So we can do the interviews, and sometimes the data may be modified over time, because we may find that as we're interviewing people, we gather information and it doesn't really support our business or idea or our hypothesis. Instead, we look at it and we're gathering information that pivots our business idea into something a little bit different, or it may change it altogether. So we want to get that information and be non-biased, gather that data to see, do we have a repeatable and scalable business model? So we want to get that data. All right, so now how does it work? So when people are doing something, sometimes it's difficult for them to stop and view the behavior of an outsider, right? So humans really do prefer the status quo over anything typically. Now, the example I gave with my husband and the drill bit, wow, he really wanted a solution because that was a high scale problem for him that he wanted to solve. So, but oftentimes people find it difficult to make the change because they're just accustomed to the way that things are working for them, and there may not be receptive to change. So we need to find out about that. Humans tend to think things, there may be only one way to experience something or behavior. So here's an example. So perhaps you park your car in maybe this very lot at FGCU. And so if you stood outside and watched people as they perhaps pulled into the garage, walked out of the garage, walked back into the garage, what might you discover? You might discover many different things. Perhaps you can, what time they come, whether they're in a hurry. There may be a host of many different things. The type of car that they may have, where they park on the deck. Do they struggle to get a spot below the deck? Do they want to avoid the top deck because the sun is shining there? Are they, there's many different things we can discover by just observing people. And here, in and out of a parking garage. And then there's many more things that we could discover as we're watching. So what we want to do is document information. Now we're thinking about this as it applies to our business idea. One good thing to do for this assignment is to think about the 5 business opportunities that you had in the last assignment. Choose one of them that resonates with you. Maybe you've gotten some good feedback from your peers on one particular idea, and it's really resonating with you, and that's the one you want to go forward with. So for the purposes of this course, this is a good way for you to choose one of those ideas, or if you have something totally different, that's fine too. And then go ahead and start gathering some information, interviewing, observing people, and to see how you can gather data to make a decision whether you should pivot on this idea, come with a totally new idea, or move forward with that idea. Okay, so let's see, you may have a diary for interview notes. You may have just a book of notes. You may be observing, you may be taking pictures, video, doing many different things to gather data. So what entrepreneurs seek, it's not really deja vu. You know that feeling of, oh, I feel like I've been here before. With entrepreneurs, they're really looking at vuja de. It's the opposite. We're just switching it around a little bit. And what we're looking at instead is not, a repeat of something from the past, but looking at something in an entirely new way. So we want to, how can we look at it differently and hopefully in an improved way? So here's a note on statistics. When we're using statistics, and normally we are running statistics with quantitative data, data that's measurable, and we can apply statistics. Why don't we really need to know everyone's name that is going into the garage? We don't need to know their name. It's really more important is, how many people are going in. And there may be some other data that we may want to gather, but their names are not important. Maybe something that would be of importance is that they have an FTCU parking ID. That might be important, but their names really are irrelevant to our study if we're studying the cars in the garage, right? So if we can look at how full the garage will be in that scenario. Okay, so now why does research work? So here's an idea. We have a whole population of people that we would like to get data from. We have this large group of people, maybe 100 people, say. But what we can do is we can sample a small random sample size. So these are random, just people from this larger population. And so we have a group that we can interview those people, perhaps, where we can gather that data. And we are expecting that data that we've gathered to generalize to that entire population. We're expecting, if we have a simple random sample here, we're expecting that sample of data to generalize to all of these people. And it'll be fairly accurate within a couple of degrees of error. Here in this surveying 30 people, I'm not saying go ahead and survey 30 people. You can survey 5 people, 10 people, whatever works for you, that you're coming up with some repeatable answers. So you're coming up with answers that you can look at that has some type of pattern to it or some type of similarities. And at that point, you can stop interviewing. Some people need 50, some people need 100 interviews, depending on the product or service. So, but you really want to get out of the building and speak with people, which ties into the customer discovery. And you will see when we go into that, how important it is to get out of the building and speak with people so you can get that information. So instead of just moving forward with building and branding and then finding customers. So we don't want to do that. We want to stay away from yes or no answers to our interview questions. We want to use appreciative inquiry. It's a research topic that has become very popular. And so we want to really appreciate their answers. We want to gather the information and think about it and perhaps come up with other questions from the answers that they've given us. And so, so we want to gather as much information as we can. Or perhaps, another method is observing depending on the product or service that you want to move forward with. Here's a class exercise. You can go ahead and go along with this if you'd like. We're just going to move along to the next section here. So when we look at customer discovery, we're looking at, well, what is it that a customer has that they want to have some type of a gain? They want a benefit for something that they have. Now, for my husband's situation, wanting the right drill bit, it was a pain that he wanted to resolve, right? So this was a painkiller, would be a drill bit that worked and went through that very dense porcelain tile quickly and easily, that would cut through it like butter. It was very manageable. It wouldn't slip, wouldn't cause any damage, and wouldn't injure himself with it, right? So that was a painkiller that he needed. But other scenarios are perhaps someone needs some type of a benefit rather than a painkiller. Although painkillers, people tend to want to pay more for a painkiller than they are for just something that adds an extra benefit. Okay, so another thing we want to think about is empathy. So here in this particular scenario, this is kind of a comical image here. So understanding other people's feelings and understanding it from their perspective. Here, this is a simulation of a few folks together trying to imagine what it would be like to sleep on a plane. So they're putting some chairs together, very close proximity to one another to see, well, what is it like? Could be a plane, could be many other places as well. All right, but really getting into it and understanding how other people feel. Okay, so that's the end of that slide deck. Hope you found that helpful. Okay, so the next thing, what I want to do is go to the next section, which now is customer discovery. So when we look at the resources here, we can see we have a few different videos. We have a video here that is narrated by Steve Blank, and how to build a startup. And it ties in with customer discovery. And here is another video by Steve Blank. It's an interview with Steve Blank, and it really has to do with customer discovery and getting out and speaking with people, finding out where your customer may be and who they are, and getting some data from them to help you. All right, so next, when we go back to the module, we'll take a look there. All right, and then I'm going to go into the slide deck for customer discovery. I just want to mention the assignments for this module. Please download the exam 3 review sheet and start collecting information from this module and from the reading, which is part of the module, to prepare yourself for the third and last exam for the course. Here is a potential customer interview sheet. I'm going to go ahead and open that for you so you can take a look at it. Okay, popped up. So you can see here are some sample questions they're example questions. You don't have to follow these slavishly. There are some good questions, but you may need to alter them depending on your business or service. Right, and then, so you want to stay away from not leading the customer and some other information there. We'll go over that in the next slide deck. And then here is the information you need to fill out for the assignment. You're going to decide who is your customer. I'm going to go over that in the slide deck. And what are their problems? What are they doing to currently solve their problems? So you're going to be doing some interviewing and finding out this information. What have they tried as a solution in the past? And then on a scale from 1 to 10, how serious is the problem? And what would they be willing to spend to fix this particular problem? And so we're going to gather this information to answer this question. I will help. Who are your customers? Very descriptive. Who are they? And to solve what problem by what solution? So you're going to be asking many people these questions and to see if there's a trend or some type of commonality there that can help you to answer this final question. I know I have 50 as an ideal amount, but it depends on the business and how many people you are able to interview. All right, so let's move ahead. And then from that potential customer interview sheet, you would just select assignment 5, and here again, you can see the questions that you're going to answer. And then here is that last question. I will help customers. Who are the customers? Be very descriptive. Solve what is the problem by what is your solution. And you want to be very descriptive. Okay, and this is actually your value proposition. Right, so that's what we're going to move forward with within the next module. So you will need to have that in time for that. All right, so let's move towards the slide deck for customer discovery. All right, so here we are. So we need to, a market. So I have a market here as to, oftentimes people come up with ideas and a patent. This one is a patent, actually. It's a patent that it was a pet receiving passageway which extends around the wearer's body. Sounds a little crazy, doesn't it? Like, why would you want a pet that's wrapped around your body, that you wear your pet around you? Okay, but this was a patent that actually was applied for. And you can see this is probably in the 60s, I would say, judging by the imagery. Here is this contraption, looks sort of like a vest, maybe a life vest type of thing. And it has a hamster in it. It's had some food area here and some water area in another part, and it can travel all around this maze of a vest that this child is wearing. And the child can take this pet around with him wherever he decides to go. So he could have the vest, or he could have just a belt I guess that's for very short trips because I don't think the hamster would be very comfortable in there for any length of time. And I'm not so sure how oxygen gets in there either. So I don't know how that all works. But does anyone really want this? Who would really want this? I mean, maybe a very small handful of children might be interested in this, but I don't think very many. And unfortunately, what is the market for this? Probably very, very few. Why spend all the time on something like this when you haven't interviewed people in advance to find out if they would be interested in purchasing it, right? They spent quite a bit on the patent, and it didn't go anywhere. So recall, right? Entrepreneurship is what? It's the process of creating value for others by putting together a unique combination of resources to exploit an opportunity. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking to see if what we have put together for our opportunity, if there are people that would be willing to pay for it. So we're going to search for our customer. And so we're looking at customer discovery, and we're going to interview those people. And once we've interviewed those people and we can either pivot to try something different because of the information they provided us, or that we're on the right track, we've validated that with our customers. So that's customer validation. So our first step is to customer discovery, find out what it is that their problem is, and then we've hopefully have validated that information by gathering that data from them and looking at that closely. If not, we pivot, right? We pivot and we make some change, and then we return to our customer discovery and we interview different people to find out, or maybe the same people, to find out if this idea would have some type of merit or would be agreeable to them. Okay, then after it's been validated, we can go ahead and start to build the business or service. So when we're identifying opportunities, we're looking at market research and experimentation. The experimentation is really the customer discovery. So here, when we look at the customer discovery being build it and they will come, doesn't work. Instead, what we do, and we mentioned this in this last slide deck, is we do it in reverse. What we're doing is we're learning by interviewing people, our customer discovery, and then we're going backwards. So instead of just learning and building, we're going to measure and gather that information and then build. So we're going backwards instead of build, measure, learn. We're going to learn, measure, and build instead. Okay, so really, it is best for startup founders to identify some type of a product market fit. So we're looking at, perhaps patterns, problems, needs, whatever it may be. We want to use some type of a general template. I've provided a general template with you to help you with some questions. You can change those. Please don't feel that you have to follow those questions precisely. It depends on your product or service. So feel free to alter them so that it can work for your product or service. But go out there and speak with potential customers and gather that information. Observe a day in a life, that sort of thing, depending on if you need to observe to get the data, that's fine. If you need to go out and speak with people, that's fine. You want to be able to answer the questions for the assignment. And be sure you ask open-ended questions so that you're really getting information instead of just yes/no questions. You want to do certain things like, staying away from different, don't want any double barrel questions. Double barrel question is two questions in one question, because then they're not sure how to answer it, or maybe they're only answering one part of it. So just ask one specific questions and then move on to the next specific question. All right, try appreciative inquiry instead. And then also you want to focus on the gains and pains. Think about what pain points people are experiencing or what benefits they're looking for. Some of the things we can utilize are, if we can't actually interview people, although students are good to interview, students, faculty, and staff are good resources to reach out to get your data, right? To interview those people, if that's your customer. Okay, now we could do some other things. We can go to Twitter, we can go to Quora. If you haven't tried Quora, it's a place you can go, you can ask questions and then you can get information back. Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups is another one. You can gather some information there to ask questions, get information back. Different online marketplaces as well. I have just an image. So, Zappos followed this idea of customer inquiry. So what they had done when they started is they came up with the idea is we believe that people want to buy shoes online. And well, as we know, it's a huge success, but that was their idea. Let's go ahead and look at that. So they thought about different approaches. One is, watching customers try to purchase stores online, anything online, surveying customers, creating a low fidelity website that is just a very crude website just to see if people are interested in purchasing online. Then manually processing those orders and manually processing returns, whatever returns should come back. Negotiate to list existing retailers and sell in limited quantity. So they thought about this approach. So the other approach is create a high fidelity website. That means a perfectly developed website, automated, all systems, ready to go. You have everything set up, costly to do this. Approach one is inexpensive, and it's a way to try to see if you can validate your customer and whether or not they want that product or not. So here, what they did was they did create a low fidelity website. And when they had an order come in, and they only had a few items available, and those items were available at the local shoe store. So what they would do is get an order, they'd go down to the local shoe store, they'd buy the shoe, they'd package it and ship it. And then if it was returned and if it didn't fit for whatever reason, they would take it back to the shoe store, return it, and get the proper size or a different shoe for that customer. And it turned out that there was a demand for this. So they validated their customer discovery there. And then, of course, the rest is history. But so we want to stay away from really setting everything all up ready to go. Just try it and see if it works. So surveys, if you are going to use surveys, I don't really care for surveys because they typically have incomplete information. But again, it depends on your business or service. But here you want the survey to be short and to the point so that people are willing to complete it. You need actionable data for your survey, measurable information that you can measure and run statistical analysis on. You want a mix of open and closed-ended questions. So that those open-ended questions are so important where you can understand if you need to pivot or not. The layout should be organized and use questions that are easy for the reader to understand. As I mentioned, no double barrel questions. A double barrel question is two questions in one. Just keep it very simple, one question at a time. And don't pry for sensitive information. If you're going to request demographic information, do it at the very end where people are comfortable already answering questions, and then it's fairly easy for them to answer the demographic information at the end. We don't have that in this assignment, gathering the demographic information. But if you're interviewing people, you can already see who they are. Are they an athlete? Are they a student? Are they a professional worker? It all depends. So, and then age range, and you can gather some of that data just by observing. With a survey, you need to ask those questions, and we always do that at the end of the survey, never in the beginning. And then not leading the witness. That is, you don't want to lead them with the answer. You want to be fair and honest with yourself so you know whether you need to pivot or not. So it's very important to not lead the customer, that potential customer, with the answer you want. You let them answer it however they need to, whatever is important for them. So I had done a research study on how to increase occupancy for a boutique hotel. And it was important to me because I owned a boutique hotel at the time. And this was a school essay that I had done, a research study, and I wanted to find out. So I interviewed more than 50 people to find out of those, and of the ones that I actually had interviewed and gotten the data, it was 50. So I interviewed many more, but I wound up with 50 in the end. And my thought was, people want to go to a boutique hotel because they want luxury accommodations. And that's what I thought. I thought that was it. And then as I interviewed people, I found out from the data I gathered that, well, there's some importance to the luxury accommodations. There's some importance to price, but not that much emphasis was on the luxury accommodations and price. What was really important to people was being attended to. They wanted to be attended to right away. As soon as they walked in the establishment, they wanted someone right there and take care of them immediately and move them along to so that get them checked in and get everything taken care of for them. And then when they came down to the main area where there was some event going on, they wanted to be attended to right away as well. If they have a question that they needed answered and they needed to call or speak with someone, they wanted to be attended to immediately. So what I did was, instead of moving forward with the plan that I thought was correct, which is just luxury accommodations, of course I had some level of attentiveness to the customers, but instead I pivoted and I put the major focus on attention to that customer. So we can see how this can work. Now, our personas, we want to look at who actually is our customer. And we want to look at a lot of different information, not just, I mentioned before, maybe athletes, students, professionals. That's the start of the persona. But we want to dig deeper. We may look at demographic information. We need to maybe focus an age range. Maybe their attitude might be important for our product or service. Their behavior might also be included as well. So there may be many different things that mold this persona of our customer. I'll give you an example. I'd mentioned this in the past where my son and daughter-in-law own a company. They own a company and they create this product that's called Dino Bars. It is a very healthy snack for children 9 months old and older, mainly toddlers, but goes in a little beyond toddlers. So and the children love these. They're very healthy and they're a great alternative to a junky snack, and they keep fingers clean. So young children tend to get sticky fingers from eating things, or they can travel with them very easily. And so who's the persona who's the customer that is going to buy this product? It's not an inexpensive product. It's loaded with really good high quality ingredients. And so it is typically, the persona is a young mother of young children. So typically between the age of 20 and 35 is their persona age. She has limited time available. She is healthy snacks are very important to her for her children. So eating healthy is important to her. She also has a good amount of expendable income. So that is important. So a lot of different things like the attitude, the demographic, the behavior, all tie into this particular persona of their customer. So you want to think about who is that persona, who is that customer. So when you complete the assignment, be very, very descriptive about your customer. Here in this example, we have Derek Rodriguez we actually came up with a name of a customer, this persona. He's 14 years old. He's 9th grader in New York City. And here's the background information of him. You can see how descriptive this information is. I'm not going to go through all this, but you can see it. So he's, so we think about this particular persona. Here are his goals, right? He wants to keep track of his homework assignments on his phone, right? And wants to do well in this class and get good grades. His frustration is, and this is a pain point for him, of course, is that even though he studies, he still does not feel like he gets the grades that he thinks he deserves, right? And does not know how to get a better grade through studying. So perhaps there is, so this is a problem that perhaps his parents would be willing to pay for. The 14-year-old may not be willing to pay for that. He's in 9th grade, but the parents would really be the customer, wouldn't it? Not, I mean, it is for Derek, who's 14, and perhaps he has some money, but his parents would typically be the person. So that would be your target market. And we're adjusting personas over time as we're gathering more information and as we're moving forward with our research and our experimentation. Experimentation meaning the gathering the interview data and looking at it closely to see what patterns or trends there might be there with that data. And we're looking to help solve a problem typically, or in some cases with a gain, we're looking to provide a better benefit. Okay, so here when we look at that last question for our assignment will be our value proposition, because we're tying in our product and market fit with our customer segment. So we're being very, very clear about who our customer is. We're very specific, detailed information about our customer persona, and then our value proposition to help that customer. And this will be the start of our business model canvas, which we are going to cover in our next module. Okay, so here is an example too with Groupon. We know that Groupon started as a collective activism platform, eventually wound up going into Groupon because they had some coupons available on the website and people resonated with that. And that's what they wanted more than anything else. And that's how Groupon was started. So they pivoted and they moved into a different direction based on what customers wanted. Certainly, we know that Groupon is a very large scale company at this point. Yes, in 2010, Google did offer all in about $6 billion to acquire the business. And that was from a pivot, right? So it's important to understand that pivoting is not a bad thing. So if you're not getting the data you think you need, it's okay, because you can pivot and make some changes along the way. All right, so now let's see where we are here. I think that's all we have for module 11. It's hard to believe we're actually in module 11 already. Yes, so that would be it. So please go ahead and move forward with module 11. I'm looking forward to reading your assignments and seeing what you've obtained from your customer interviews. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. We'd love to hear from you. Just go ahead. You can message me if you want to have a Zoom meeting with me, or you want to have a telephone call, that's fine. I'd be happy to do that with you. Thank you so much.